Alright guys, today we're going to be taking a look at the best combos for the Slingshot gloves coming into late 2025 in Counter-Strike 2. These are one of the more popular gloves in the game, never been high up on my list, but we sure can cook a fantastic loadout with them with all these great combinations. Now, I'm going to commit really early to this being a bit more expensive loadout because we are going to pick up the gloves in minimal wear to try and get them as clean as possible, and that will cost you just over $2,800. But if you do have that money to spend on a good pair of red gloves, then you're going to be loving it here because the thumbs can come out really clean, the palms look good, the tops look fantastic, and then you're going to pair it with a Talon ruby knife. So this knife is basically $5,800, which is insanely nuts. But what is great about this combination is the Talon ivory handle and the inside of the gloves work together really well, and this is kind of like an end game combination if we're being honest. And I want to cover real quick, the CT agent is going to be Ricksaw because I do think you want to have sleeveless when it comes to these gloves. The more affordable and sometimes deemed better option knife wise is actually the Talon Slaughter. Now this is $1,085, so you're talking a fifth of the price, and honestly get you pretty close results, or maybe even a better red pairing for the gloves here. So it really depends what you want. Do you have the budget, and do you want to spend big on the ruby, or do you want to go for the Talon Slaughter, which might be deemed the better combo? And just to showcase something that's not a Talon, if you were looking for something else, I think an M9 Autotronic, for example, could work really well. Now this is a $1,600 knife. You may want to go for a cheaper Autotronic, but just to sort of throw out all the options, I think those Talons are by far the best pairing wise. And as we jump to the USP, I'm actually going to suggest the Bleeding Edge for $18 in minimum wear. I looked through all the red USPs. I even started looking at stuff like the Desert Tactical because I thought that would work really well with like the beige palms of the gloves, but ultimately Bleeding Edge for me just sort of won out. And then recently I have become a big fan of the Nevermore P250 because for $1.15 it's fairly affordable. It has some nice patterns on it, and if you did want to go pay for like a tier 1 pattern, you're only talking a couple dollars extra. So really nice flexibility. Normally I default towards the Murtos here, but the reds just weren't perfect, and I thought this is where the Nevermore could shine. And then maybe a surprise, but the Desert Eagle, I'm going for a Mecha Industries. The reason for this is because it actually has this beigeish color on it with a red accent, so it means we actually get to play a little bit into the secondary colors of the gloves, and I think that just complements really nicely to not be forcing red on red the whole time. Like, let some sort of creative options exist. And I might not really usually want to pay this much for the dual Berettas, but I think the Hemoglobin are probably going to be the best shout here, and you do really want to get them in a factory new. Following this up is the 5.7 Urban Hazard, another one that I think you want to get in factory new because it does just wear quite poorly. It's going to get lots of scuffs. For under $3 factory new, one of the better 5.7 skins in the game as well. I think this is a solid pickup. And running the back with 3 factory new skins back to back to back. It's going to be a Ruby Poison Dart this time. $3.30 for this. We still lack really solid red MP9s outside of the likes of the Hot Rod, which has been priced to a crazy level to the extent where I can't even suggest it on a loadout this expensive, so I just can't do that for you guys. So it's going to be the Ruby Poison Dart. And sticking in these reds, or like maybe not truly red, like that was already pink, and then we got this ready orange of the Bloodsport, $3.15 and minimal wear in that same sort of price range. I think this is a good MP7 overall. The only other option is the Mischief, if we're being real. So I think this is an area we'll sort of pin it as like a lack of options. Maybe you want to try and go for like a brownie desert camel color to pair in with the beige instead. Now on the UMP, I think the Crimson Foil is worth the pickup here. Now it is $9.52, so it's quite pricey. However, I think it's one of the more interesting UMP skins in the game, and it's in a collection that we don't know how long it's going to be in the game for, so it could be an interesting one long term. Also, before I waffle about the XM, just thoughts on like the camera position here. Obviously, we're in a new place. Does this camera angle look good? Are you enjoying it for the video? Just give me some feedback on that. It would be handy. The XM, although the tranquility for me looks best with the Scarlet Shamas, I think it is the good XM option for the Slingshots as well. It does wear badly. This is minimum wear, but that's going to cost you over $10. So that's kind of why I've not jumped to factory new on this. And then obviously I was really stuck between this Petroglyph and the Heaven Guard for the Mag 7. Obviously I ultimately landed on the Petroglyph, one of my favorite Mag 7 skins in the game, if I'm being honest. And then we could get into the meat and potatoes of the CT side, looking at the rifles. Again, I'm going to lean Mecha Industries here. I think those secondary colors just work so well together here. For $55, you get a pretty damn good pairing. And yeah, I think honestly an area for red issues is the A1S. It's very unique options, and I think this is the time where you can actually make it work well. And while you might be thinking of Hot Rods on Welcome to the Jungles as the alternative, I think the Cyrex is actually a good alternative for $44 minimal wear. You can see here why I prefer the Mecha Industries, because it does get those tertiary and secondary colors as I was talking about, but this one is not a bad alternative. Now, I can't actually suggest the initial M4A4 that I wanted to, however, the Tooth Fairy is a pretty solid backup here, because that sort of like off-coloring of the red plays pretty well into the slingshots, especially in this like idle view. So for $5.05, I'm quite happy of this being like the backup option I ended up going for. If you're wondering what the initial thoughts were, I wanted to go for a Hellfire, but min wearing this is now 160 with Factor New being pumped. So, or like previously being pumped. I don't know if it's going to start dropping, but just the market manipulation has kind of ruined this as a valid suggestion, kind of similar to the Hot Rod. And then I've lined up two op options, kind of depending on if you're an opper or not. If you're not an opper and this is an expensive loadout, you still want something good, I think the Wildfire is a good shout. It's $81.50 for min wear. You do get a top tier op skin, especially in the red colorway, really nice. So I think this is just a good option. You maybe use it sparingly, you drop it to people you want them to see you've got a good skin, that kind of thing. Now, if you're a main opera, you can still use the Wildfire, but maybe you want to spend more, because we associate like higher spend with being good a lot of the times in CS world. A long dog in min wear for $485 would be my shout here. I think those red tones are actually pretty similar, despite the fact that you use a lot of white against this beigey color. But I think if you want like a more flex option, just because of its price, as I say, maybe you look at the long dog. And I did almost go for the Grey Ghost and the Famous, but I just decided to lock in on having the full Mecha Industries family collection here. It's $11.80 min wear. I've said enough about it already. I think it just works quite nicely. And then maybe a surprise, but we end off the CT side with the Xeno Scout. This is like black and white with blue and red accents, but just something about it for $1.25. I was like, I quite like it here with the slingshot. So what do we do when we look at the T side? Well, a lot of people seem to like using Resin the Red Shirt Saber because of the red sleeve. Now, I did want to suggest it because it's $16.50, one of the more affordable T options for agents, so it's a valid one to have. However, I think there's something better. Now, it does come at basically 5x the price, but number K here is such a no-brainer for me. Those white sleeves into the, obviously, the ivory of the handle, I think this is just a very, very complete sort of T combination. I personally prefer the Darrow Legends because you get jewelry on them. I normally have jewelry on. I don't have right now. Normally, that's a good play, but yeah, I think number K would be my preference here. And on the Glock, you still basically have two options. It's a Water Elemental or a Candy Apple. I want Water Elemental this time because I want a bit of flair and actual bit of artwork. Please, Valve, give us another red option. I know many offers are waiting for it. And on the tech, I wanted to actually showcase the example of where you can go further into the secondary color. The raw ceramic on the tech actually offers us up pretty nicely, and I'm really vibing with this combination here. For the sake of 4%, I know the gloves are mad expensive. I think it works together really well. And then, just like those AK shots derailed my thought process a couple minutes ago, we have the Mac 10 derailment here. This is $12 for minimal wear. What I like about this is it is heavily red, both in Inspect and in Idle, which is kind of cool, pairing it with the reds. But those mix of colors as well, it's something about it with the slingshot, you can kind of get away with blending the colors. Now, my only two field test skins. The first one is the Shallow Grave P90. I don't like minimal wear pricing on this. It's a bit too high. Even field test at $3.40 is kind of like the max I'd want to spend. And then the high roll on our field test, it starts to get some scratches and wear where I normally wouldn't want it to be. But for the sake of $3, I want to avoid that jump up. Again, I know we're spending a lot, but still want to eke out some value in some areas. I think this does the job. And now it's the big boy rifles. The Crimson Tsunami for the Gale. For me, it just makes sense here. The reds are close enough together. We've got that ivory into that color of the waves as well. For a $2.90 skin in min wear, I think this does quite well as a pairing, especially when red Gale skins kind of lack. Now, the big question indeed is what AK are we going for? Now, we're going to go for the Novo Rouge. This is $125 in minimal wear. Has now settled to quite a nice price. What I like about this is that the off-white color and the gold with that sort of beige of the gloves works together quite nicely. The reds are a little different, but overall, I think if you had to pick an AK pairing, this is probably the best one in the game right now. And I do know a lot of people will put shouts out for the X-Ray, but there's two things here. One, I don't think it's a good skin, and two, it costs $1,735 for minimal wear. So we're talking a full 10x compared to the Nova Rouge, which just looked better. And then finally, we have the Berry Gel Coat on the SG. Now, $4.35 for this might be a bit more than you wanted to spend, but it's hard to deny that this isn't like an almost perfect pairing. Like the style of that like sort of effect that we get on the Berry Gel Coat plus the accent color, it's all so good. So, Slingshot combos, there you go. If we're building a loadout though, what are we talking as total cost? Well, if you went for the Talon Ruby, which again is a very expensive knife, almost 6k, you're talking basically a $9,000 loadout. So it is very expensive, but people do have that budget. We got to cater for them sometimes with these videos. But the other two options do cut costs down dramatically. For example, going to the Talon Slaughter, which I think all in all people may actually say in the comments as being the best one. You guys can let me know if you think so, or if you think there's something I've missed here. But this would make it $4,322. So immediately, this becomes a much more reasonable option for you. And it's with minimal wear gloves as well to have them looking so damn clean. You could save even more money going field test it. And then if you went for the M9 Ultronic, that's a bit more. You get a bit closer to the $4,900 mark. Now, I want to note these prices are with Resin the Redshirt Saber in mind. I have spent the extra $70 with number K here, so add $70 on top. I think at this point we're talking $9,000 and $4,000 loadouts. It's not going to change it too much, but I wanted to be very clear of that. So there are the Slingshot gloves. Now, this is episode 37 of this series, and we are getting to the point where I don't think there's many gloves left that are of interest for people. Initially, I wanted to do every glove in the game, but it's quite clear that some of those gloves you guys just will not care for and do not want to see. So we'll have to weigh it up. I think we're nearing the end of the series, and if you enjoyed it so far, please hit that like button and let me know in the comments down below. That would be super cool to know that you guys like this kind of thing. And before I go, I want to say a big thank you to the YouTube members for continuing to support the channel. Some of these guys have smashed it for over a year so far, and if you want to become part of the Fuzzy Fraggers and get some of those benefits, hit that join button down below. It'll give you all the details. I'm going to catch you guys in the next one. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.